My name is Janet Palmer. I'm one of Her Majesty's Inspectors and I'm currently the National Lead for PSHE, that's Personal, Social, Health and Economic Education. Some argue that PSHE education should not be the responsibility of schools but the responsibility of parents. And I can understand why some parents would think that, because many of these issues they would be teaching their children. But what we need to think about is children's entitlement to this education, and where there is no guarantee that they are getting this sort of education at home, then we need to know where is it happening, how are they being safeguarded, how are they learning to be discerning, how are they learning to safeguard themselves and others. It's really important that PSHE begins in Key Stage 1 or even at reception, and is built on a spiral curriculum working right the way through the curriculum until young people are leaving school. It shouldn't be reacting to an issue after the event. An example of this would be dealing with bullying after it's happened rather than preventing it happening in the first place. Governors and school leaders need to know that they are failing in their duty of care and their duty in their safeguarding duties towards the children in their care if they do not ensure that PSHE is taught effectively. That when the children leave their school and when they go into their future adult lives, they're able to cope with the changes that are going to happen, which are going to be massive. We don't know what they are, but we know that the life will be different for them than it is for us, and that they can cope with that future, and also that they can make a positive contribution to the future. Children are not going to disclose abuse if they don't understand what it is. They don't have the confidence to disclose, they don't know who to go to, they don't know what appropriate behaviours are, and that's teaching, that's learning. If they don't know that, then don't expect that they're going to disclose. We're not then going to know and not going to be able to help them. Were PSHE to be a subject that was well taught in every school across the country, because it is personal, social, health and economic education, I would hope that the outcomes would be the improvement in the personal, the social, the health and the economic well-being of young people as they grow up. And that should have an impact on their lives, the lives of their children, the lives of those around them. They would be making decisions as voters, as people who have influence in their communities and in their families, that would be well informed in terms of theirs and others' personal, social, health and economic well-being. That's what I would hope would be the outcome of good teaching in the subject. It depends who in the school is trying to improve it, you see, because it's unlikely to improve in any school unless the senior leaders and the governors are on board with it. So if the problem is that they're not, that's where you have to start in persuading the senior leaders and governors. That's tip number one, that this is actually going to make a difference to educational outcomes overall, because research outside of Ofsted, but also our own survey findings showed that good PSHE, outstanding PSHE, was having an impact on overall outcomes. Once the subject is resourced, part of that resourcing also means proper training for the teachers. That's got to be the next tip. Some of these topics that teachers are being expected to teach in PSHE are the most complex, controversial, sensitive, difficult things to teach. Yet many of them are being expected to do that with little or no training. So you wouldn't expect that of any other subject on the curriculum. If you ask me to go in and teach a physics lesson with 1 day's training, initial teacher training, expect it to be rubbish. It would be. So even though teachers are working very, very hard to do this well, they deserve good training to enable them to do that, and good resources to support that as well. So that's sort of 2 tips. Third tip would be, let me think, not to worry too much about trying to fit in with over the school's general assessment systems if they don't suit the subject. The subject is unique in many ways, and to find out whether or not children have understood, whether or not their attitudes have moved on, whether or not they've developed the skills that they need, is not something that can often be done in a pen and pencil paper test. Some of it may be, some aspects of knowledge, that might be just right, but we need to be more creative around how we assess the effectiveness of PSHE education. And I think schools should be bold and brave about how they do that. In terms of the way Ofsted inspects schools, we have 4 areas that we grade, and one of those 4 areas is personal development, behaviour and welfare. In order for a school to be graded good, that area needs to be good. It needs to be good. So what are Ofsted inspectors looking for? Well, a whole range of issues will be in there, but certainly if PSHE is weak or missing in the school, it would be very, very difficult for the school to ensure that children were being properly safeguarded. It's likely to have an impact on their behaviour, often on attendance as well, because many of the issues that are affecting why the children are not attending may well be issues that relate to the PSHE curriculum. When we undertook the Ofsted survey that was published in 2013, some of the evidence came from an online questionnaire that went out to young people aged 8 to 17 across the country in every local authority. And the results that came back from that are really quite interesting. When we asked them to prioritise the things that they thought needed to be taught in PSHE, right at the top of that were issues to do with mental health and bereavement, which a lot of schools don't even touch upon in their PSHE programmes, but they were important to the young people. And if you look at the report, there are some quotes in there from young people saying that that's the sort of thing that they need to learn more about. As with any other subject, when Ofsted are looking at PSHE lessons when they're in school, they would expect the same high quality materials being used, those that children will engage with effectively, not the overused worksheet that's been in the drawer for the last 3 years with a footprint on it, which is what you sometimes see because the subject's not being given the same priority as other subjects in the school. To be effective, we would expect the same level of resourcing, the same level of time given on the programme, and that those resources will be exciting and interesting. The children will also be able to engage with them from their own perspective and be able to if we're asking them to develop their opinions, if we're asking them to be able to make decisions, informed decisions, they need to practice that. And they need to have those opportunities in PSHE lessons to be able to practice that decision making, to talk issues through with each other and with their teachers. I'd like to finish with a message that I regularly get from the children that I meet. Where PSHE is taught well in school, they absolutely love it. They see the value of it. They think it's the most important lesson of the week. They are able to see the relevance to their future lives, but they don't always see it in every aspect of their schooling, but they do see it in PSHE, and there's always more that they want to do. They will always come up with this, yes, we could do more about this, we could learn more about that. These things are really important to them. And when we did the PSHE survey, the online responses was never to have less PSHE and fewer lessons, always to have more in-depth work around these issues, which they saw as hugely important to their lives now and also for their lives in the future. So if we take that message from young people, I think that we can't go too far wrong in giving the subject the support that it requires.